high-stakes world of cardiology, every single second counts. And in those critical moments, there's just no time to go look something up. That knowledge has to be an instant reflex. So this isn't about just cramming facts. It's about forging mental keys that unlock answers under pressure. Welcome to your masterclass. I want you to think of the human heart as this incredible high-performance engine. It's engineered to work relentlessly, day in and day out. And just like any elite engine, it's got its own diagnostics, its own tolerances, and its own set of cheat codes to really understand what's going on inside. These mnemonics, they are those codes. They're the tools for rapid, accurate recall when it matters most. So let's fire up the engine and start decoding. We're going to start with the spark. See, the heart's electrical system is like a perfectly timed symphony of impulses. It's this delicate dance that orchestrates every single beat. But when that symphony falls out of tune, the result can be absolutely catastrophic. So the heart has its own master conductor, right? It's a tiny little group of cells called the SA node, and it sets the rhythm of life. But what happens when that conductor goes rogue? What if the heart's own pacemaker starts to wander, firing off signals erratically from all over the place? Well, what you get is multifocal atrial tachycardia. The key to remembering this is to really visualize that wandering pacemaker. Just imagine this chaotic storm of electrical signals firing from at least 3 different spots in the atria. Each one of them creates a P wave with a totally unique shape, and it sends the heart into this disorganized rapid frenzy, way over 100 beats per minute. Okay, so from that electrical chaos, we're now going to turn to an electrical shortcut. This is a really dangerous bypass that creates a whole different kind of storm. It's a classic you'll see all the time, Wolff-Parkinson-White syndrome. So what's its signature triad on an ECG? What are the 3 things you have to look for? It is the WPW triad. And a great way to think about this is the hot wire analogy. It's like someone's hot wiring the heart. There's this extra pathway that lets the electrical signal completely bypass the AV node's normal delay. The delta wave, that's that classic slurred upstroke on the QRS. It's the visual proof of that premature firing. The short PR interval confirms the bypass is happening, and the wide QRS is just the result of this abnormal, really inefficient conduction. Now take a really close look at this slide. It illustrates the core problem beautifully. Over on the left, you see the normal, orderly flow of electricity. The signal pauses at the AV node, right? That gives the ventricles time to fill up. But look at the right, in WPW. You can see that dangerous shortcut. That accessory pathway causes what we call pre-excitation, and that is a recipe for some potentially lethal arrhythmias. All right, we've looked at the spark. Now let's talk about the engine itself, the myocardium. This is the powerful muscle that's tasked with pumping blood to the entire body, every second of every day. But what happens when this mighty engine starts to sputter? When the very pump that sustains life begins to falter? Now, in the fight against heart failure, we have a pretty powerful arsenal of medications. But which ones are the real game changers? I mean the ones that are proven not just to manage symptoms, but to actually turn the tide and reduce mortality. The ones that give patients a real chance. The mnemonic you absolutely have to burn into your memory is BASH. These drugs literally bash heart failure into submission. So B is for beta blockers, which act like brakes to slow down an overworked heart. A is for ACE inhibitors or ARBs. They open up the pipes to reduce the pressure. S is for spironolactone, which helps bail out all that excess fluid. And H is for hydralazine plus nitrates, a combo that just eases the heart's total workload. You know, sometimes the most critical clues are hiding in plain sight. On a chest x-ray, this subtle shape, what we call the figure 3 sign, can be the key to unlocking a major congenital diagnosis. It's the visual hallmark of aortic coarctation. Just think of a sharp kink in a high-pressure garden hose, causing it to bulge out before and after the narrowing. That's what you're seeing here. Okay, picture this. A patient is in the ER. They're gasping for breath. Their blood pressure is plummeting. You listen to their chest, and the heart sounds are distant, muffled. This is a code-level emergency, and your mind has to immediately jump to Beck's triad for cardiac tamponade. That's hypotension, increased JVP, and muffled heart sounds. These are the 3 signs of a heart literally being squeezed to a standstill. The heart is a 4-chambered fortress, and its gates are the 4 valves guarding the one-way flow of blood. But what happens when these gates are breached? When they get attacked by an invisible microbial enemy, or when they just fail to close properly? So you're in the clinic, your stethoscope pressed to a patient's chest. But instead of that familiar love dub, you hear something that just makes you stop. It's a continuous, humming, machine-like murmur that just keeps going through the entire cardiac cycle. What is that? That iconic sound points directly to a patent ductus arteriosus, or PDA. The easiest way to think of this is like a leaky pipe in the heart's plumbing. It's a connection between the aorta and the pulmonary artery that's essential in the womb, but it's supposed to close at birth. When it stays open, it causes blood to flow continuously where it shouldn't. Now, infective endocarditis, this is a master of disguise. It's a systemic illness, and it can show up with just a bewildering array of symptoms. So how do you piece that puzzle together? How do you connect all the dots and make the diagnosis before it's too late? You remember that the signs come from Jane. F is for fever, the body's alarm bell. R is for Roth spots in the eyes. O for those painful Osler nodes. M for a new or a changing murmur. J for the painless Janeway lesions. A for anemia. N for nail-dead splinter hemorrhages. And E for emboli, the tragic result of those infected vegetations breaking free. Okay, now for a special case. For endocarditis in IV drug users, which valve is the most common target? Well, the clue, it's right on the tip of their tongue. They need to try to get clean. It's the tricuspid valve. It's the very first gate that bacteria hit on their journey from the peripheral veins. So far, we've focused on the engine. But the heart is just the central pump for this vast system, a highway of arteries carrying the fuel of life to every cell. So what happens when this highway is torn apart by a catastrophic failure? An elderly man, long history of hypertension, clutches his upper back, his face just contorted in agony. He describes a tearing, ripping pain, unlike anything he has ever felt before. You quickly take his blood pressure in both arms, and what you find is a massive, flashing red flag. Imagine a pain so intense, so excruciating, that it feels like you're being ripped apart from the inside out. That is the classic, terrifying description of an aortic dissection. That symptom, combined with that blood pressure difference we just talked about, is a vascular emergency of the absolute highest order. So from a sudden, catastrophic failure of that vascular highway, we now turn our attention to a much more insidious problem. A chronic blockage that slowly strangles the blood supply to the extremities. The telltale signs are diminished pulses and skin changes, and the simple, definitive screen for it is the ankle brachial index. All right, one last puzzle for your stethoscope. You hear a split S2, but unlike a normal split, it doesn't change when the patient breathes. It's fixed. So why? It's because in an atrial septal defect, that little hole between the atria causes a constant shunting of blood, which keeps the right ventricle perpetually overloaded. And that delays the pulmonic valve closure, no matter what the respiratory cycle is doing. You see, learning these codes isn't a one-time event. It's about constant review. It's about embedding these patterns so deep into your clinical foundation that they become second nature. Because true mastery is a continuous cycle, driven by the relentless beat of the